Ladies and gentlemen, Robert Mack.
Hello, Americans! And esteemed foreigners visiting our bountiful lands. Hello, I'm unsung comedy legend Robert Mack from robertmack.com. And thank you. And being here tonight, where I went to high school in a packed theater, is a real treat for all of you, because this is my 22nd comedy anniversary. Thank you. Can you believe it? Yes. I've been doing this for 20 seconds. 30, look at that, it's great. It's nice to be able to perform again and accidentally spit on people. Sorry, front row, don't worry, I've got all my shots, so you will not catch my rubella. It is weird, though, to be doing this again. I'm very aware that I don't have a mask, and everyone is staring at my face, and it's freaking me out a little bit. But I want to remind everybody, I also have a body, all right? Eyes down here, okay? I don't like masks. I've never liked masks. I will always associate them with people who want to take all my money. Like a bank robber or my doctor. Charles Darwin once told me, he said, human beings need to connect. We're hardwired to connect to each other. And it's true. I saw a neighbor in my building that I hadn't seen in months, and I wanted to connect, so I went in to shake, and I don't know if that's cool or not, so then I thought I would do a fist bump, and I don't know where that is either. So I ended up just doing that, and that's where things are these days. Yeah. Scissors beats rock and paper. I'm just glad that we don't have to quarantine again. I think if that were to happen, the murder rate would go through the roof. Because for 2 years, we've been collecting gloves and masks and industrial cleaners. That's a serial killer starter kit. Add an annoying roommate and you've got a future murder scene on your hands. And podcast. I was recently talking to a psychiatrist because, none of your business, but after a few questions, she asked, what do you do? And I said, I'm a comedian. And she said, that sounds fun. And I said, well, in the good times, when things are going well, it's fun, but it's a tough job, and it's been even tougher the last couple of years. I haven't been able to go out at night and work. Instead, I just stay home and have another glass of wine with dinner, or wine cooler at lunch, or wine smoothie in the morning. Frosty, yet approachable. It's the breakfast of champions. But it's true, anyone who performs in front of a live audience is one of the toughest jobs in the last couple years. I would say it's like the third toughest job, right after new accounts manager at Zoom. And Glacier. Yeah, not a lot of Glacier jobs. When I was a kid, there were glaciers everywhere, but now, not in this economy, right? Back then, there were glaciers all over the place. They even had songs about it. Mamas, don't let your babies grow up to be glaciers. But now, it's just the market is too hot, literally too hot for glaciers. But this is true, I did a fundraiser for a group that wanted to save glaciers. I know it's a stupid idea. Where are you going to save them? All right, they're pretty big. And it was an online fundraiser because I'm virtually funny and I have the surveys that back that up. But I said it's too hot for glaciers, and if you saw my last special, you probably remember I have a lot of great ideas on how to lower temperatures around the world, like convert to the metric system. When we convert to the metric system, temperatures will drop 50 degrees overnight. That's a fact. I know. And I know what you're thinking, sir. You're thinking, I don't want to convert to the metric system because then we'll have a bunch of Metricans come into our land. Well, then you're a measurist and you need to chill off. Which is what my mom, Pat, always says to me, because sometimes it gets too hot in the basement for me to sleep, but I didn't come here tonight to talk about Pat because she's not the boss of me anymore. Anyway, I told that story that I call the metric system, and this group canceled me for what I call the 50-50 rule, which is half of all people have a below average sense of humor. That's a mathematical fact. It's true. Somebody got offended because they were taking things literally instead of figuratively, and comedy is about looking at things from different perspectives. And if you don't see it from different perspectives, you're not going to get it. Plus, it's pretty unpatriotic because stand-up comedy is one of the true American art forms based on the knock-knock joke, which is the building block of comedy, which can only develop here in the United States thanks to freedom of expression and the right to privacy. You can't have a knock-knock joke in a dictatorship because they don't knock-knock. They just barge in and steal all your stuff and throw you in the slammer. But not in America. Here, knock-knock. Who's there? Bill. Bill who? Bill of Rights. Which is why I think they should teach comedy in schools, all right? It's so easy, the teachers would love it. You pop in a video, and if everyone's laughing except you need comedy recognition training. Who in their right minds would not want the schools to teach CRT? Everyone's getting offended at comedy these days. I'm really worried about those roast battles. They're gonna totally have to reinvent themselves, you know? Your mama is so big-boned that when she sits around the doctor's office, she should probably consider getting a cholesterol screening as well. She eats chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream until the cows come home, but it's dairy-free so the cows won't be exploited for their milk. The only thing bigger than your mama's stomach is her heart. I'm grateful knowing her and wish her nothing but positive health outcomes. I know somebody who recently changed their pronouns, which is great, much better than this other guy who recently changed his adjectives. He was pretty taciturn, but now he's all cantankerous. Some people change their nouns, yeah, because they want the junk by their junction to have a new function. You can't refer to different cultures or nationalities, so it's impossible to order a Black Russian at the club. Excuse me, bartender, I'd like a former Soviet Republic of African descent on the rocks, please. Speaking of Russians, I'm sure they're attacking somebody right now, but my main fear, my phobia du jour, is that they are still temporarily winning the cyber war because it's part of their cultural DNA. For hundreds of years, nobody could play piano better than the Russians. And then the keyboards adapted and everyone changed, except they were able to adapt faster and better than anyone. And plus, their names are all 16 digits long and impossible to pronounce. It's the perfect password. And every country has their thing. Americans are into hot dogs and racing and being wasteful with stuff. And those things line up on the Venn diagram on competitive eating, which is why we're the best. Russians are into keyboards and being sneaky with stuff and global domination, and those things intersect on cyber warfare, which is why their politicians technologically are way ahead of ours. Remember, Hillary couldn't even figure out her email server, and before that, her husband's website was hacked. Remember that? AshleyMadison.com? Too soon on that one? I recently saw an old friend of mine, and do you guys have that special person in your life who knows you better than you know yourself? Because my friend David thinks he's that person. He's not, but he thinks he is. We went out to lunch, and I said, oh, I think I'm gonna get the burrito. And he said, no, you're gonna wanna get the chicken tacos. And I said, nah, I don't think so. I don't want chicken tacos, nor am I going to want them. And he said, no, but trust me, get the chicken tacos. I said, I don't even eat chicken. We've gone over this. We went over it last week. And he said, just get it. And so anyway, if you don't have that special friend in your life, you can have mine because he doesn't listen, all right? And I know a little bit about tacos, all right? I grew up outside Seattle in a little town called Tucson, Arizona. Which is the Mexican food capital of the United States. And when I hear about tacos or think about tacos or imagine tacos, I think of the kind that I came up on, right? The old school, original, traditional taco. There's like 3 different kinds. And the original kind is the hard shell corn tortilla. You bite into it, it breaks into 100 pieces. That is my kind. That is the old school, like OLDE. Old school, SK, etc. The traditional. You can't get any older than that. And then there's the foldable, flexible kind, which is like the new favorite. Those are the soft tacos, and those were invented about 11 seconds after the original taco. Yeah, somebody went, why don't we just put it on flour tortilla? And then there's my least favorite is the chewy taco, which are a little bit smaller, and they're lubricated in some sort of oil to make them very flexible, but more important, they are so greasy, you can hold them up to the light and see through the taco to know what the ingredients are inside. So you don't have to open them up, you just hold it up. We got a chicken and a chicken. David, your order's up. Here you go, David. Should have got the burrito. Here's a real conversation between me and David. I said, David, I'm moving. Can you help me move? And he said, I'm going to be out of town that day. And I said, well, why don't you wait till I tell you what day it is first? I was at a conference recently about, it's none of your business. I was at this important conference, and I was listed in the program as a motivational speaker. Because, it's great, because if they list me as an unsung comedy legend, then people come up to me and they say something funny. And I say, well, the other day, after morning nap, my mom, Pat, came down to the basement, even though she's not allowed to, without permission. But I didn't come here tonight to talk about Pat because she's not the boss of me anymore. I'm the bomb. I'm the boss of myself. And it goes on like that for a while. And they don't want that. They want to surprise everyone. So they say, you're going to be listed as a motivational speaker. And then when people say, what do? I say, well, on Thursday before dinner, I'm going to give some communication tips to make your interactions in the office a little bit more productive. And then they say, I left something at the registration table. And they leave. It works every time. It's amazing. And by the way, this was the fanciest conference I've ever worked. Here's an example of how fancy it was. One morning, I was awakened by the sound outside my window of a meditative yoga class. Yeah. To give you some context, usually I wake up at the cheapest hotel that they put me up in to the stampeding feet of people racing hungover to the free breakfast in the lobby of the crappy hotel, or maybe light gunplay. But this place, so fancy. They had the gongs, gong, gong, and they had the little bells, chilling, chilling. Inhale and hold it, and follow your breath to the most relaxing place. And the only thing more relaxing than a deep meditation is being asleep, which is where I was like 3 minutes before they started the whole percussion show. It was noisy and lame, but so fancy. There are different levels of fancy, right? You have non-fancy, which is most of the people, most of the time, like wearing shorts at theater. No, it's fine. Most of the people, most of the time, non-fancy. There's no harm in that. There's no shame, all right? Then you have like regular fancy. And it doesn't have to be people. It could be like penguins. People think penguins are fancy because they have a tuxedo. Or ketchup packets. If you look closely at some ketchup packets, it says fancy ketchup. If it has a specific gravity of 1.15, that's fancy ketchup. And then beyond that is extra fancy. And those are things like formal events, like a prom or wedding or a funeral, or like 4 weddings and a funeral. That's extra fancy. And although I would say if you're getting married more than 4 times, your fancy level is probably gonna drop a bit, I would imagine. I mean, I'm not on the committee or anything, but 4 or 5 till death do us parts, your score's coming down, I would imagine. And then there's top fancy, which is all fancy all the time, and you never see that. It's very rare. It's mostly royalty. Here, this is true. You can look this up when you get home. There was a queen of Thailand in the 1800s who was top fancy, and she was so fancy, nobody could touch her. That's how fancy she was. And one day she was on one of her ships. Doesn't matter, all right? She was on one of her ships going to this very fancy ketchup tasting event. It gets better, and then she fell off the boat into the water. I know, and nobody could touch her, and so she drowned because she was top fancy, and no one could touch her. I know, it's tragic back then. Now, it's okay to laugh a little bit, but at the time, very, very tragic. And they said, we can't have this going forward. So then they had the conclave of fanciness of 1887, I think, and they decided that if you wore white gloves, it was okay to touch a fancy person. So if you go to an event and there's a server there with white gloves, that goes all the way back to the conclave of fanciness of 1887, I think. The Queen of England once told me that being top fancy all the time blows. I'm paraphrasing. But she's top fancy, and she's got a lot of castles, as you would imagine, but sometimes she goes to events outside of her kingdom or queendom. I don't know what it is. All right. For example, a couple years ago, she went to celebrate the 800th anniversary of the Magma Sutra thing. And so she's going over there, and they're like, the queen is coming, and they clean everything up, and it's not good enough. So then they paint everything, and it's not dried yet, and the queen's coming, and so they bring out these huge royal fans that say, huzzah, and they dry everything, but it's still a little tacky and a little moist, and that is what... Anything outside the queen's bubble smells like moist paint. That's what she told me, which would be a great name for a band, wouldn't it? The Queen's Bubble? Or moist paint. But everything smells like moist paint. I was telling you something before. This resort where the conference was, I believe, was probably top fancy because everything was the nicest I'd ever seen. Here's an example. The first thing they asked me after I checked in, they said, at what time would you like your fresh squeezed orange juice and newspaper of choice delivered to your casita, Mr. Mac? Yeah, casita is Spanish. It means little chicken taco. It was so fancy. There was a hot tub right in my backyard there. And it wasn't hot then, but I pressed the button, and now it's hot. And then now it's not. Hot, not hot. It was pretty fancy. And then there's a dressing room and a foyer, and then the closet area, and then behind that is the restroom, and I'm taking pictures of everything because I can't believe it. And then the toilet sees me, and it does, because it went and its lid lifted up. It was like the sealed lid. It came up, and so I went over there, and I'm like, you know what? I have to go anyway. And so I went to lift up the seat, and it didn't want to give, and I didn't want to break this thing because this toilet costs more than my house. And there are a bunch of buttons on the toilet, and there's a picture of a leaf. Like, when am I going to need a leaf? I don't know what that's for, but I figure, you know what? I'll just sit down, right, and do it lady style. So I sit down. The seat was warm, for one thing, totally fancy, right? But total revelation because I've got both hands free and my phone. I've never been so productive in my life. Seriously, they say if you want to get something done, give it to a mom or somebody like that, because when they're in work mode, you can't stop them. And I totally get it, because I was in the zone and I did all my stuff. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do a little social media, scroll, post. I check the scores of my team, search. I got an email from the conference that says, oh, tomorrow's theme is productivity. If you've got any time-saving tips, please send them in. And I'm like, you're not going to believe this. But if you want to multitask like a mother figure, just make pee-pee lady style. Send #revelation. There are some jokes I won't be doing tonight. I apologize. I'm going to go over those really quick here. So there's some jokes. I'm not doing any Kardashian jokes. I don't know anything about Kardashian. I don't even know where Kardashian is. So I'm not going to come up here and talk about something that I don't know anything about. So no Kardashian jokes, no sex jokes, same reason. And the sperm whale that ambushed the giant octopus at Lake Titicaca. I'm not doing that one. For obvious reasons. The kids. And then jokes I might do. I have some jokes I might do. I have a thing called My Favorite Thing. If I remember to do that, I might do that one. And then this says Prince Andrew. The last thing I want to do is make fun of Prince Andrew, so I'll be closing with that. And jokes I am doing. I'm doing this joke, which is called Jokes I'm Not Doing. So it kind of folds into itself and becomes a singularity in the time-space continuum. And then back in the pocket. Okay. Still my turn? While you guys were living it up during the pandemic, I had a spinal infection. Yeah, let me rewind. This is the backstory of my backstory. First, global pandemic, right? And I lost all of my night gigs. And I lost my day job, which is booking all of my night gigs. Then there was a little matter of the kitchen fire, and nobody got hurt, but it was a kitchen fire. You know how things are cuter when they're smaller? Like, I don't know, Yoda, Baby Yoda. If you would have seen this kitchen fire, it was so cute. You would have been like, fire! Aw, it's adorbs. It's just a microwave and a couple cabinets and some smoke damage. Basically, a $3 bag of microwave popcorn cost $2,503. Then was a rotator cuff surgery, which I don't remember too much about because they gave me a shot and said, count backwards from 100. And I said, 99, and woke up in a sling. And they said, it looked really bad, but it's fixed. And good news, you're going to be golfing in 6 months, which is amazing because I've never golfed. And then... Thank you. Then was the infection, which might sound kind of scary, but it only affected my spine and the parts of my body connected to my spine. And they said, you need to go to the emergency room. And so I went there. And here's just a little tip for you guys. If you're going to schedule an unexpected medical infection thing, plan it for early on a Friday rather than Friday rush hour, because there's not a lot of urgency in the emergency room when the weekend shift clocks in. And they're just kind of lax, and so I had to spend the night, and it was my first sleepover at the hospital. And here's a little pro tip. The first thing you're going to want to do when you get into the hospital is get out of the hospital. Because that place is like a haunted Greyhound bus station, right? Nobody wants to be there. The doctors don't, and the patients don't, obviously, but I had to. I was there for 10 days and 10 nights. I never left. It was like the worst all-you-can-eat vacation ever. And I took a lot of medication because my pain level was 8, which is considered really bad on a scale of 1 to 5. I had a nurse, and English was her second language, which means she speaks more languages than I do. So thanks a lot for rubbing it in. Now I'm stupid and contagious. Here we are now entertain us. It's humiliating enough because I'm wearing that clown gown. It's like they did a shamectomy on me. At first, I walk in there, I'm like, oh no, don't look at my underwear. But after a week and a half, it's more like, does this catheter smell funny to you? If you don't know what a catheter is, it's a thing that goes inside your body that you can't imagine could fit inside your body, but it goes in and then it comes out and they clean it and then put it back in for a week and a half. It's not that funny. It's the most horrible thing I've ever experienced. But please, laugh it out. I know. But I'm better, and I'm out. I lost a little weight. I lost an inch in height. I lost all of my money because a guy with a mask had a knife to my back. But I'm performing again. It feels great. I've stopped buying lottery tickets, almost. Things are getting back to normal. I've started running again, but it's hard to run the way I did before. I run just a little bit, and I'm exhausted, and then I take a hot shower, and that makes me even more tired. And afternoons between 3 and 5 is sort of my downtime as well. And when I eat, because of my metabolism, every time I eat, I get a little groggy. So I'm pretty much tired all day long, except when I want to go to bed. And that's getting old. I'm really tired of this insomnia, but not tired enough to actually sleep. And that's the thing I need to figure out next. And the worst part isn't tossing and turning and counting of the minutes and counting of the hours. It's the medical, I wouldn't call them professionals, the medical amateurs who give me advice on what I need to do to sleep better. They're like, you need to lie down. Are you lying down? You got to lie down. And then dim the lights. You should dim the lights. Are you doing that? Yeah, no, I'm going to speed metal concerts and chugging Red Bull by the gallon, but thanks a lot, Doc. Which is kind of mean, and I'm more of a, how can I dim the lights if I'm lying down kind of guy. So I got to work on the messaging on that one. So if you see me yawn, it's not you, it's me, but it gave me a great idea. If I get a shot of a whole crowded theater like this yawning at the same time, I could use that as the cover of my next comedy album, Robert Mack's Jaw-Dropping Comedy. I think that would be a perfect shot with such bits as serial killer starter kit and moist paint and intro. It's dreamy. So I'm back, and I'm a little stiff, like physically, and I'm a little rusty on stage, so I'm working on this thing. It's called a 180. I should be able to do a 180. I should go from Disneyland to the apocalypse in 2 syllables. Watch. I recently had a baby for lunch. Did you catch it? Some of these are kind of subtle. They're jokes, but they're kind of subtle. You got to listen up close. All right, here's another one. It's a small world after all, kinda. Do you guys see what I'm doing? It's a 180. I'm going back and forth because I want to bring it down a notch because this is true. We recently had to put down a cat, an old cat. It was time to go, but it's sad, and I know people have had worse things happen over the last couple years, but putting down a pet was a pretty tough thing. And real quick, you know that thing when I'll get back to the cat in a second. You know that thing when your car starts acting funny and the check engine light is going crazy and you finally get it to the mechanic and the light is working fine and everything is just perfect? That phenomenon, I don't know what it is, but maybe they should come up with an emoji for that. Whatever that is was exactly the same thing that happened when the vet came over to put down our cat. We've got a 2005 tortoiseshell, soft top, racing stripes. Purrs like a cat, right? If you don't know what a tortoiseshell is, it's a kind of cat that's kind of splotchy, and inside it's very similar. It's a little neurotic, and so we have to give it this cat Prozac, and then medicine, it gets sick on that, so there's medicine for that, and they get older, they get a little senile, and so she's running rough for a while, and we're thinking maybe it's time for a trade-in, right? And Because a cat that goes senile when we live in a tiny house. You guys know what a tiny house is? It's a condo. We have a condo. A condo is all the expense and responsibilities of a house with the thin walls and shared laundry facility of an apartment building. It's the worst of both worlds combined in a suicide pact. And that's where we live. And an old neurotic cat that wakes up and doesn't know where it is and is demented and just starts yelling, meow, meow. It's really bad. And she goes, no, no. And it's not like meow. It's like, now, like feed me. Now, I need my medicine. Now, I need someone to pet me. Now, and do you want to go inside? Do you want to go outside? And I'm trying to chase this cat. No, no. I'm totally pussy whipped, which is a zoological expression. But the check engine light, it's gone. It's time to go. And so we call up the vet. Benjamin Franklin once told me, he said, the only thing certain in this world is death and significant tax breaks for the wealthy. I'm paraphrasing, but it's time. So we call the vet, and the vet is coming over. And that day, Luna's euthanasia dar goes off, and she becomes a new cat, and she's playing with a tennis ball. We're like, where did you get a tennis ball? And she's on her back legs, and we're like, it's like she's doing an ad for a retirement community. And the vet comes up to put her down, but she's like not ready to go yet. And we're like, can you hold on a little bit? And she's got other customers to get to, and it just didn't seem right because she's living a different life. And we're like, can you hold on? And it's expensive. We already put the deposit down. And then she finally threw up, and we're like, okay, that's more like it. So go ahead. And so Dr. Katvorkian finished her job, which is really expensive because she has to do it 9 times. Sometimes at night, on a clear night, when the moon is half full or half empty, depending on your state of mind, I guess. And then when the wind's coming in, sometimes you can barely hear, no, no, no. Addendum, we have an addendum. We got an addendum to the story. We adopted 2 kittens, and it's great. They're so young, they don't even know they're adopted yet. They think they're dogs. It's so cute. And they're like great partners, but not for each other. So that's why we named them Peanut Butter and Juliet. And that's the story on how we killed our cat. I hate coming here. No, I love being here. I love being here, but like getting here, that's a whole different. Getting here is a total, slowly unfolding nightmare. Being here is great, but the getting here, I drove here all the way from Arizona, right? And so it is just, it's a mess. But then I thought about it, and I thought, if I lived in a really poor country like the Congo, I probably wouldn't be here tonight. Because it's a much further drive, but because they don't have any infrastructure, right? Which is why I support House Bill 126A. Got infrastructure? Because we got infrastructure. It got me here, but now we got to fix it because we've got it and it's messed up. The state animal in Maryland, where I live now, is a crab coming out of a pothole. That's how bad things have got. And they fix them, but every 6 months they just erode again. And the roads shouldn't be eroding, all right? And the streets are just littered with litter, I guess, technically, literally with litter. And the worst offender, you know what it is? It's plastic straws, because they last 1,000 years, all right? Well, why don't you fix the potholes with the plastic straws, all right? It's a no-brainer, which is how I thought of it, okay? Can you love something that you don't understand? I'm done with the infrastructure stuff, by the way. That's it for the infrastructure. Can you love something you don't understand? Because I'm totally in love with the big G, which is all around us, and I think you know what I mean. Gluten, right? I love gluten. I don't know what it is, but I love it with all of my heart. Because recently, I was at the airport. By the way, if Congo had an airport, I'd probably be here right now. I was at the airport, which is my favorite infrastructure, and I was running late between flights, and I grabbed a couple slices of pizza. I grabbed some regular American glutenized pizza, and then a slice of gluten-free pizza. And it looked like regular pizza, and it glistened like regular pizza, but it was some kind of fool's pizza. And it gave me a stomachache, all right, because I thought I was eating the box. I'm no science man, all right? I'm no Sir Isaac Gluten, but I did a little experiment, and I compared them, and there are two differences: gluten and flavor. I've cracked the code, all right? The gluten's in the flavor carries the gluten, all right? That's how it works. But despite that, there are gluten-free restaurants. I don't know how they stay in business, all right? I want to go there and come home with a sack of it, a sack of gluten, all right? I'm not a printer. I didn't invent the printing press. I'm no Johannes Gutenberg. But if I were, I would print up these huge signs that say free gluten and cover up the gluten-free signs on the menu, because free gluten, you'll get some customers. Gluten-free, you're just going to get some empty parking spots, all right? You know how noise-canceling headphones work? I'm going to get back to the gluten in a second. Noise-canceling headphones, they work because every sound makes a wave, and this contraption makes the opposite wave, and they cancel each other out, right? No sound, right? Voila. Voila is French for ta-da. If you got a slice of gluten and made a wave of it and then made the opposite wave, that's how you would make gluten-free, all right? That is cardboard. That is the only food you could send through a fax machine, all right? I don't know what gluten is or what it wants of us or where it goes when it's ultimately freed, right? And I'm no iron-fisted dictator. I'm no Vladimir Gluten, all right? But if I were, I'd support House Bill 126B, all right? The Happiness Reclamation Act for life, liberty, and pursuit in gluten. Okay, how are we guys doing here? All right. I've stopped watching the news. It's the worst show on television. Seriously. I know. Who comes up with this stuff? It's been on forever, 0 Emmys, and it gets renewed every season. I was binge watching for a while, and I figured out what our main problem is. Our number one problem is we have too many problems. And we get a problem, and it goes to the front of the line, and we don't solve it, but then another problem takes cuts in front of that problem. And then we have two problems that we're not dealing with. And then another one takes cuts in front of that. Like we had a global pandemic. We're not done with that. And then it was racial justice. And then it was minimum wage. And then it was Afghanistan. And then it was Nicki Minaj's friends, cousins, nouns. And then it's just one thing after another. And meanwhile, global warming is at the end of the line going, hola, I'm still here. At one point, the number one problem, actually the moment that I wrote this down, the number one problem was statues, all right? I don't know if you guys know, where I live, there was a civil war, pretty big thing. And then after the war, they started to give out a bunch of statues, and it seemed like the easiest way to get one was to be a high-ranking commander on the team that lost who also had a horsey. Those guys were getting a lot of statues. They were handing them out to them like they were participation certificates at a middle school science fair. You get one, and good job, you can put this on the fridge. You guys all did great, you came in second. Where I live, there's a statue of a person born more than 100 years ago, and I guess it was important that they built a statue, and it wasn't the guy who founded the town or the first school teacher, it was the town drunk. Wobbly McBoozebag. They decided to put on a pedestal. It just seems lame. Every generation should be able to pick their own statues, right? Andy Warhol once told me, he said every person is going to be famous for 15 minutes, and it gave me a great idea, right? temporary statues. Because the problem with these old statues is they last longer than the public's memory. Statues last hundreds of years, and heroes come and go at the drop of a hat. So that's why I'm inventing temporary statues. They're like regular statues, except instead of being built out of, I don't know, marble or stone, they're made out of like clay or whatever they use to fix the potholes on my street. That way, the people who currently live in an area can have a statue that's important to them. And if they don't like it or get tired of it, it's kind of easy to edit. That way, maybe you'll be walking in the park one day and you're like, hey, what happened to the Play-Doh sculpture of Will Smith? Which it divides the room because these are the times that we live in. If I came out here and said we live in divisive times, 50% of you would say, it's pronounced divisive. That's how... I've been alive for my whole life, except for that one time in college. And I've never seen our country so polarized. And it's not just Will Smith, you name it, sports, all right? Some people say Tom Brady is the greatest of all time when everybody knows it's Michael Jordan, right? Or science. Some people say the planet is round and we're not gonna listen to what you say because we're smarter than you. And another group says the planet is flat because we're looking at it. And it's my job when you're a professional communicator, of which being good at, I am one of them guys, it's my job to come out here and try to get people on the same page, which is why I say maybe the planet is round and flat, like a pizza, right? That's why the outside is called the crust. Come on, everybody. Come. I know. Come to the table and have some cosmic pizza, all right? We live in a country where you can believe whatever you want, which is great. It's what makes our country great, and it's why I chose to be born here in the first place. But sometimes people's beliefs and the facts don't line up. For example, there's a place called Cosmic Pizza not very far from where I live. And this other group of people were saying that there was a group of people based in the basement of the Cosmic Pizza that was a cult, a cannibalistic cult of child traffickers. But upon closer examination, turns out this place doesn't even have a basement. So, oops. You know what that means? I know, I ate all those babies for nothing. No, not for nothing. Look at how my skin glows. Thomas Jefferson once told me, he said, an educated citizenry, all right, is a vital requisite for our survival as a free people. Basically, we need gooder schools. Otherwise, a bunch of dumbies are gonna be voting on everything, including who gets to vote. And that's why schools, it's a big issue. Where, at least, I don't know what it's like here, where I live, the school scene, it's a mess. It's been a mess for a couple of years now. Masks, no masks, they don't know. They don't know where to teach or how to teach or what to teach. You've got parents blaming teachers, and you've got mayors blaming school boards, and you've got health officials blaming governors. And everyone is overlooking the most important part of the equation, the kids, right? Let's blame them. If they were just a little bit smarter in the first place, we wouldn't need so many schools. We're gonna go soon here in a minute, and they said I should tell a couple of jokes. So sit down and listen up, all right? And go. My favorite thing in the bedroom is when she puts on her nurse outfit and leaves for work without waking me up. My neighbor got a cream that makes you 15 years younger, but her kid got into it, and now he's an embryo that can roll its eyes. If we can send a couple billionaires into space, why don't we send them all? Do you guys like the rapper 50 Cent? Because I just bought 2 50 Cent CDs at the dollar store. Show your work. If you gaze into the eyes of a millennial, you will discover their truth, which is this. their phone is charging. That's the only time they make eye contact. My recently divorced chemistry teacher says alcohol is a solution. Show your work. Here's a science riddle for the kids. Is the seventh planet Uranus with the emphasis on urine, or Uranus with the emphasis on anus? I don't know if it's number one or number two. Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, and Prince Andrew walk into a bar. Do not go to that bar. Thank you so much. I'm Robert Mack from robertmack.com. Thank you.